Finally, after a few performances, the award show began, and Leeway readjusted himself in his seat, ready to have a clear view of the entire room. His cell phone rang again, displaying an unknown ID. He grabbed it, contemplating whether to answer, but ultimately set it back down, reminding himself that the mission was more important. Master Shen, on the other end of the line, informed him that a few cars were pulling up at the venue, likely dropping off important guests, and promised to alert him if anything significant happened. Leeway nodded and continued scanning the room, still stealing glances at Amara's table to ensure she was okay. Finally, their eyes met, and Amara smiled at him, blowing a kiss and gesturing that he looked good. Leeway chuckled softly at how adorable she was. A waiter approached and served drinks at their table. Leeway grabbed a glass and downed it in one go, immediately returning his attention to the room, searching for any unusual movement. The nominees for Artist of the Year were announced, and Kai was declared the winner. The whole room erupted in cheers, people standing to congratulate him as he made his way to the main stage to receive his award. Amara and Wubin stood as well, applauding him. She thought about how proud she was of Kai, admiring how he pursued his passion despite his family's lack of support and still achieved such great success. She noted how playful he seemed outwardly, always joking and laughing, but sensed there was so much more beneath the surface. Leeway also stood clapping as he watched Kai accept his award. On stage, Kai moved to the microphone, giving a heartfelt speech, thanking his fans for their unwavering support over the years. He glanced at Wubin, acknowledging him not just as a friend, but as a big brother. Then he looked at Amara, addressing her as his girlfriend, and thanked her for always being by his side. Finally, his gaze shifted to Leeway, who sat watching him intently. Kai smiled and stated that there was also an important person in the room he wanted to recognize. As he said Leeway's name, he paused, a sudden idea lighting up his expression. Returning to the microphone, he declared that Leeway was the true heir to Eastgate Group, certain that everyone was looking forward to him taking over the company and continuing his father's legacy. Leeway was startled, communicating silently with his eyes, asking Kai what he was doing, but Kai ignored the gesture and continued, urging the media and reporters to support Leeway in reclaiming his rightful place as heir. He acknowledged that Leeway preferred to avoid public appearances and addressing the media, but their backing would be greatly appreciated. With that, Kai stepped off the stage, leaving the room murmuring, questioning why he would make such a statement, and speculating whether he was challenging his family or starting a conflict within Eastgate Group. Puzzled by Kai's sudden declaration, Leeway immediately rose from his seat, determined to follow him backstage to demand an explanation. He rushed through the corridors but suddenly felt his head spin and his vision blur. He tried to steady himself, reminding himself that he still needed to remain alert. There was a bigger task to complete that night, and he couldn't afford to falter. Struggling to move forward, his body weakening, his head spinning violently, he suddenly felt someone grab him, pulling him into a nearby room and slamming the door shut behind him. Amara sat there, glancing over at Leeway's table, realizing that he wasn't there. Her expression shifted, a wave of worry and upset washing over her as she thought that maybe he had already left. She considered the possibility that he had gone to the bathroom and decided to wait a while longer for him to return. She tried to focus on the performances on stage, but her mind refused to cooperate. All she could think about was him. Unable to bear it any longer, she stood and rushed out, hoping to find him, to see him, and maybe even talk to him. Meanwhile, Leeway stood in the room he had been pulled into, his head still spinning and his vision blurred. He tried to look around, deciphering what was happening. Suddenly realization struck him. His drink had likely been spiked. A distinct, unnerving sensation spread through his body, triggering an arousal he immediately recognized as unnatural, and it clicked to him that he was spiked with an aphrodisiac designed to trigger sexual tension. He tried to turn and leave, but someone stepped in front of him. She placed her hands on him, touching him intimately, whispering that she had missed him. His vision still hazy, Leeway tried to make sense of her face, asking who she was and what she wanted. She leaned closer, brushing her lips near his, her voice soft but teasing, as she asked if he had already forgotten her, continuing to touch him, whispering how much she missed him. Leeway struggled to pull away, but his body betrayed him, reacting despite his will. He fought desperately, commanding her to leave, but he was too weak. The girl leaned even closer, producing handcuffs from her bag, suggesting they could recreate the intimate moments they had shared in the past, hinting that he secretly missed them, too. She moved in as though to kiss him, and Leeway battled harder to regain control of his senses. Meanwhile, Amara walked through the corridors, pretending to head to the bathrooms, hoping to catch sight of him. She grabbed her cell phone and dialed his number, but it just rang. Slowly moving, still calling him, she suddenly paused when she heard a phone ringing in a nearby room. Hoping it might be him, she cautiously approached the room, her steps hesitant. Inside, Leeway still faced the girl, struggling against the effects of the aphrodisiac. He told her to leave, but his voice lacked firmness. His blurred vision suddenly cleared for a moment as he saw Amara's face projected on the girl's face. Trying to convince himself it wasn't real, he felt an unexplainable pull, an intense desire. Unable to resist, he slowly reached out, his hand caressing her face gently. The door opened, and Amara froze in her tracks. She stared at the scene before her, her heart sinking and breaking at the same time. Seeing him with another woman, even touching her face, was unbearable. Her eyes fell on the handcuffs in the girl's hands, and recognition hit. This had to be the girl from his past, the one he had been intimate with before. Her knees weakened, her chest tight, and her trembling hands dropped her cell phone. Both Leeway and the girl turned to look at her. Amara snatched up the cell phone and ran off in tears. Leeway's instincts snapped. Something inside him shattered. He grabbed a nearby glass of whiskey, crushing it forcefully in his hands to feel the pain and bring himself back to reality. The sharp sting grounded him. He shoved the girl away, demanding that she stay back. When she grabbed his hand, he spun around and slapped her across the face, his dark gaze piercing hers. "Stay away from me," he hissed. "I will make you pay for this." His heart pounded, senses fully returning. He knew he had to find Amara, explain everything, and ensure she was safe. If it meant carrying her home and getting her out of that place, he was ready to do it. Amara's heart shattered as she rushed out. The sight of Leeway so close to another girl tearing her apart. The thought of him touching her, looking at her the same way he always looked at her, standing so near. Her made her entire body weakened due to the pain she was feeling. She stood by the corner, covering her mouth as silent sobs racked her, tears streaming down her face. Leeway ran frantically through the venue, searching for her, but she was nowhere to be found. He returned to the main hall, scanning every corner, the urgency building with each passing second. He needed to find her, to hold her in his arms, to explain everything. His heart pounded as he rushed out again, pulling his cell phone from his pocket and looked at it, and he realized he had several missed calls from her. He immediately dialed her number, but it rang unanswered, and then the call was declined. He tried again, only to hear it go to voicemail. As he paused to continue his search, his eyes caught a masked man moving in the distance, the same man from the photographs. Leeway pressed his earpiece urgently and told Master Shen that the man had finally shown up. Master Shen's voice came through with urgency as he told him to go after him discreetly and not get noticed. Leeway nodded, his hand tightening around the phone. He took a step forward but then froze, torn. He could chase the man he had been waiting for all evening, the one tied to the mission, or he could rush to Amara, his woman, who needed him now more than ever. He glanced again toward the masked man disappearing into the crowd, his head spinning with indecision. Master Shen's voice crackled in his ear. "Are you trailing him?" Snapping back to focus, Leeway made his choice. The mission came first. The reason he had returned to China, trained for 10 long years, was for this moment, and nothing could compromise it. With that resolve, he surged forward, following the masked figure he had been tracking all evening. Meanwhile, Amara remained by the corner, tears streaming down her face, the image of Leeway touching another woman replaying endlessly in her mind. Leeway accelerated his car, his hands firm on the steering wheel as he trailed the vehicle the masked man had gotten into, his voice constantly feeding updates to Master Shen through the earpiece. Yet even as his eyes stayed on the road, his mind betrayed him, drifting back to Amara. The image of her face from earlier would not leave him. The hurt in her eyes, the way her chest rose and fell with restrained hurt, the pain that had shattered her expression. It all replayed again and again, piercing through his resolve. He wished he could have gotten to her in time, to explain, to gather her in his arms and shield her from the storm he had unwillingly dragged her into. With a heavy breath, he shook the thoughts away and forced himself to focus, his grip on the wheel tightening as he stayed locked onto the taillights ahead of him, determined not to lose the car no matter what. Meanwhile, back at the awards venue, Kai had returned to his seat. His eyes searched for Amara's figure that was nowhere to be seen. Wubin leaned over with a warm smile, congratulating him on his win and telling him he truly deserved the award. Kai nodded briefly, his attention wandering again, scanning the crowd before turning back to Wubin, asking where Amara had gone. Wubin gave him a casual shrug, leaning closer as though it were nothing, telling him she probably went to the bathroom or was fixing her makeup, that she would be back in a moment. But Kai's instincts burned differently. His gaze drifted toward Leeway's table, unease tightening his chest, and before he could think further, his phone vibrated in his hand. Seeing Leeway's name on the screen, he answered immediately, hearing his voice sharp and urgent, telling him to find Amara at once. Confused, Kai demanded to know what was going on, but Leeway's tone left no room for questions. He simply told him she had seen something, that she was upset, and pleaded with him to keep her safe, to tell her that he would come soon, before abruptly hanging up. Kai sat still for a moment, processing the urgency in Leeway's voice, then stood with determination, turning to Wubin and telling him that Amara was not okay and that he had to find her. Wubin, his smile fading into seriousness, rose to his feet as well, insisting that he would join him, and the two walked out together. Back in his car, Leeway kept a steady distance behind the vehicle, his eyes narrowing as he noticed it was heading further and further out of the city. He relayed this to Master Shen, who immediately warned him to stop, telling him that it was too suspicious and that the man might have realized he was being followed, deliberately luring him into a trap. But Leeway's jaw tightened as he pressed harder on the gas, his voice low and unwavering as he insisted he could not give up now, that this was their only chance, and that if he let this opportunity slip away, they might never get so close again. Master Shen's voice rose in firm caution, telling him that the masked man was not ordinary, that he carried power and danger, and that rushing blindly after him was foolish. "We will find another way," Master Shen said with a commanding edge. "This is not the right moment." But Leeway's frustration only deepened, his heart racing with the fire of a decade's worth of pain and vengeance. If he knows he's being followed, then he will vanish and guard himself even more. "This is the perfect chance," he shot back. "We've been preparing for 10 years. I will not let him slip away." Hearing the stubborn fire in his pupil's voice, Master Shen pressed harder, telling him that he was not thinking clearly, that something at the awards had shaken him and clouded his judgment. He reminded him of the lessons he had carved into him over the years, that patience was not weakness, but strength, that waiting for the right time was the only way to crush an enemy fully, and that rushing now would destroy everything they had built. His voice echoed louder through the earpiece, commanding, pleading, until finally Leeway's chest heaved and his head lowered, the conflict tearing through him. His hands trembled on the wheel, and with a sudden burst of restraint he slammed the brakes, his car screeching to a halt in the middle of the road. Breathing heavily, he sat there for a long moment, Master Shen's voice steady and unyielding in his ear, promising him that they would get to the masked man, that now they knew who to watch, they would not let him escape. Slowly, Leeway's mind steadied, the haze of fury lifting, and with a sharp inhale he turned the wheel, making a U-turn back into the city. His heart still burned with the ache of vengeance, but another fire now burned brighter, Amara. She was alone, hurting, and she needed him, and nothing in the world mattered more than reaching her first. Meanwhile, Kai had taken Amara back to the hotel he had booked for his friend, and she sat quietly on the couch, her body language heavy with the weight of her emotions, her face still visibly upset. Kai stood in front of her, his brows furrowed as he asked her what exactly had happened, explaining that Leeway had told him she had seen something and pressing her to tell him what it was. Amara remained silent at first, her lips pressed together as if holding back words that would only deepen her pain. Kai, refusing to let her retreat into silence, told her that he couldn't help if she didn't talk. Finally, Amara lifted her eyes to him and admitted in a fragile voice that she had seen Leeway with another girl. Kai let out a small laugh, disbelief painted across his face, shaking his head as though the idea itself was absurd. He told her it must have been a crazy fan or someone trying to get close to him, but that what he knew of Leeway made it impossible to believe. He was too loyal, too dedicated, too consumed by her for any other woman to matter. But Amara's eyes clouded with fresh hurt as she told him that she had seen it with her own eyes, that Leeway had been cozy with her, that they had slipped into a room together, and that he was touching her in a way that made her heart shatter. Kai's expression shifted into seriousness as he moved closer, his gaze locked on hers, asking again if she was sure of what she had seen, insisting that it didn't seem like Leeway at all. He told her there must be another explanation, and that they should wait until Leeway came so they could hear it from him directly. But Amara, still upset, shook her head and told him that she didn't want to see him or talk to him. Kai let out another quiet laugh, though this one carried more weight as he studied her, and he told her that he was beginning to see just how similar she and Leeway truly were. They were both consumed by one another, both obsessively in love, both eaten alive by jealousy, and though he had always believed it was Leeway who was more extreme, he realized now that she was just the same. At that moment, Wubin walked into the room carrying a glass of warm water, his steps calm and unhurried. He sat beside Amara and extended it to her, his voice soft as he told her to drink it, assuring her that the warmth would soothe her and make her feel better. Amara murmured her thanks and slowly took a sip, the heat comforting her trembling hands if not her breaking heart. Wubin's eyes lingered on her as he told her she was far too pretty to be crying over a man, especially one who wasn't even there to check if she was all right, and that alone, he said, spoke volumes. Kai, still standing, cast Wubin a sharp look and told him not to get too close, warning that if Leeway ever saw him sitting beside Amara like that, he would lose his mind. Wubin only smirked faintly, unbothered, his confidence unshaken, telling Kai that he seemed to be forgetting who he was. Turning back to Amara, his gaze softened as he told her to calm down, not to torture herself with endless thoughts, and reminded her that instead of drowning in sadness, she could choose to enjoy the moment. He pointed out that Kai had just won one of the most prestigious awards of his career, that they deserved to celebrate his success and enjoy the night rather than waste it on tears for a man who, by not even being there to comfort her, appeared as if he didn't care. Amara looked at him quietly, the words settling into her chest, and though the ache in her heart hadn't faded, she found herself nodding. She told him that he was right, that it was Kai's day, and that they deserved to celebrate together. Forcing a fragile smile onto her lips, she looked at Kai and said they should go back out and celebrate. Kai's eyes softened with relief as he agreed, smiling back at her, glad to see even a shadow of her sadness lift from her face. But before they could leave, a heavy knock echoed at the door, startling the air around them. Wu Bin immediately rose to his feet and strode over, his hand gripping the knob as he pulled it open, only to find Leeway standing there, his presence filling the hallway like a storm.